Lone Star triumph. Texas attracts another business, leaving California in the dust. The exodus from California continues with another company moving its headquarters to Texas. We've heard a lot of businesses that have gone from Cali to Texas. The ones that you're hearing about now, not as high profile, but there are literally one after another, after another, after another. And so many of them are from San Francisco to anywhere in Texas, because Texas is such a pro-business, pro-development. Hey, let's not worry about the details. Let's get this done. We want you to be able to operate successfully, safely. We want you to be able to make a go of it. Here's some economical housing. Here's a business environment. Here's lack of regulation. Here's a low tax basis. How else can we help you run your business in the Lone Star State? That's literally the red carpet that Texas has rolled out. And guess what? It's a working. Let's get into it. Here we go. Yet another business is moving its headquarters from California to Texas. The country's largest frozen Mexican food manufacturer, Ruiz Foods, has announced it's establishing its sole corporate headquarters in Frisco, located about 30 miles north of Dallas. My parents moved to Dallas, Texas in 1989, I think it was, from Bellevue here, from where I grew up. And so I got to know a lot of North Texas. All the way up to the county border. And now my parents live in Oklahoma City. And so, all the way across that border into OKC. So Frisco, nice town. I mean, it's anything north of Dallas, downtown Dallas. Okay. South Dallas, a little rough, a little sketchy. East Dallas, that's land of, Dallas Buyers Club, literally. Those complexes you see there. My dad owned a bunch of, apartment complexes there in East Dallas. It was tough in the mid 90s. A lot of stuff going on. But Frisco, yeah, I can see why people would do that. As national business with locations and customers throughout the U.S., being in the center of the country allows us same-day access to each of our facilities. You can go East Coast, West Coast, right? Puts us closer to our customers and provides us with a larger metropolitan market for talent recruitment. Ruiz Foods President and Chief Executive Officer Dan Antonelli said. So a lot of these companies are coming from San Francisco because San Francisco is not safe. The tax situation, you've got multiple layers of taxation. You do not have a business environment that is centered around seeing the success of a business. It's more like, what can we take from you, Mr. Business, Mrs. Business? What can we take from you to strip you down? Because we've got so many policies that don't pay the bills that this is how we got to do it. We got to take from you and spread out to everybody else who doesn't want to work, because that's literally what California's got going on. Okay, so Ruiz Foods President and Chief Executive Officer Dan Antonelli said it was easier to recruit in North Texas as more qualified people were available. You've got a talent pool there. It's like Seattle has a tech talent pool. San Fran has a tech talent pool. But if you are a food company and you need to be able to pull from a big geographic pool of folks that are qualified, Texas is one of those places, and specifically Dallas. And you've still got relatively affordable housing. The further out you go, the cheaper things get. But in Dallas, you've got the ability to commute. You got tollways and stuff that make getting around easier. In Seattle and San Fran and LA, commuting sucks. It's terrible. So the move is expected to add 125 new jobs to the area. Welcome to Texas. Earlier this month, Cacique Foods, I think I'm pronouncing that right, one of the leading brands in Mexican food products, announced they were relocating to its corporate headquarters from California to North Texas. Cacique is the market leader and has products in 80% of grocery stores across the United States. The company's new corporate headquarters will be in the Las Colinas district, north of Dallas College North Lake campus. Las Colinas district is like one really nice office park after another. That's my memory. Las Colinas is nice. It's Dallas nice. Dallas has some areas that are just like, wow, there is some money here. And it's pretty wild. They will also build a processing factory the size of almost 4 football fields in Amarillo. Do you think they're going to do something with 4 football fields in San Fran? I don't think so. What would the cost of that be? So you've got land and availability, and you got roadway access to get around. You've got central location in the United States. Everything is cheaper. Taxes less. There's no state income tax in Texas. Is that correct? I believe that is still correct. So it didn't take this business owner that long to think about it and figure out, okay, this is what we're doing. In April, one of the largest home builders in the United States announced it would move its corporate headquarters from California to Dallas, Texas. Landsea Homes Corp is moving into 7,700 square feet of space on the 10th floor of the East McKinney Street in Dallas Uptown District. Here's another business. Inventa Holdings, an international artificial intelligence firm, is also relocating its headquarters from San Fran to a tower on U.S. Highway 75 in Allen, Texas. A lot of these go up and down a couple of major roadways, Allen, Texas being one of those. And, it's Dallas and Fort Worth are kind of twin cities, and you've got these, circles that go around them, and those are where the population growth has gone. And Allen is right in there. McKinney's, right in there. The company will move into 5,000 square feet of office space in the One Bethany West high-rise in the summer. Summers, though, in Texas, blazing hot. And I think it's getting hotter as we get more and more warm weather here in Seattle. You get more and more warm weather in like California and Texas. And man, I spent a few summers in Texas. Hot. If you come from Seattle, we are just not prepared for that kind of heat. We just wilt. We do. If it gets 90 degrees here during the summer in Seattle, I mean, it's going to be all over the news. It's going to be, here's our recommendations to avoid dehydration in this hot weather. Send your children with multiple layers of clothing because in the morning it's going to be chilly, and then by noon it's going to be 90 degrees. Watch out so your child doesn't die of dehydration. Hydration is key. Inventa joins mobile network company MD7 LLC, which fled California for offices in One Bethany West. So there's already another company that's beat him to it that was also in California. This leads to a job boom in Texas, which Texas Governor Greg Abbott is proud of. Texas is the economic envy of America. Over 2 million jobs added since 2015. 2 years of uninterrupted job growth, over 14 million Texans working. Working together this session will ensure Texas remains the best state to work and run a business. Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Right? And you can't really argue with them. The stats are what they are. Now you might say, wow, but yeah, what about, all this other policy that leans kind of right? And you're like, well, that's part and parcel of what makes a state good for business. Because if you notice policy and the part in policy for Seattle, for Portland, for LA, for San Fran, they've gone the other way. They've gone from taking from businesses because they need to suck as much money out as they can to pay for all this other ridiculous stuff for people who don't want to work. Texas, proud of how many people are working. Could you ever imagine Jay Inslee, the governor here in Washington, of talking about how people are proud to work in the state of Washington? No. Because we're worked up about making sure that, we're all part of a team, and, we've got all this equity and we've got all this inclusion and tampons for everybody and, just crazy stuff that's not necessary. Portland's even worse. I mean, yeah. Since 2020, over 140 companies have relocated to Texas, with 40% of them moving from California. 4 out of 10 from Cali. I mean, California is still going to have a massive imprint on the United States economics. It just is. It's got a massive, the amount of goods and services that they put out is enormous. But there's a bunch of companies that don't want to have to deal with the taxation, don't want to have to deal with the overregulation, don't want to have to deal with all this stuff. And Texas comes up as a pretty darn good option. So if you're looking, for something to, be your next step, Texas, Florida, another great option. There's options out there. And I think a lot of companies are looking at this and going, okay, maybe it finally is time to make this move, because leadership in, like, say, the state of California has just been so anti-business in the last few years. I mean, they'll say a few things now and then that they'll say, oh, we want you to bring your companies here. We want to work with you here. And it's like, okay, what's the tax base in Texas? What is it in Cali? Okay, that's not even close. And what's the processing part, getting a business going in Texas versus California? I mean, the two aren't even remotely comparable, right? Because it's just so onerous in California to do everything. And that's because you've got to filter everything up to make all this policy. You got to have inclusion for all, and, got to have all this money floating around to cover all these programs. Whereas in Texas, you've got, don't mess with Texas. You throw out the garbage in your car, we will, we'll arrest you. They're not going to arrest you, but they're not going to be happy you're tossing garbage. In California, that's just where garbage goes. San Fran, that's just where garbage goes. It just goes on the ground. I mean, somebody will come by and pick it up with your taxpayers' dollars. Whereas in Texas, no, you pay it up. We're going to give you a fine for doing what you did. Don't mess with Texas. Yeah. So that's, that is a massive oversimplification of what you've got going on. But Texas, Florida, they're just better environments to run business. And I don't blame companies, from moving left and right. During the beginning of the pandemic, we saw, who'd we see? We saw Joe Rogan leave. Remember that? He's like, screw it. I'm moving to Austin. Now, Austin it's a little bit more liberal, right? It just is. It's just got that whole vibe. Whereas Dallas, you got a lot of oil money, and Dallas is a fun town. I don't care what you say. Yes, it's hot. Yeah, you can fry an egg in the sidewalk, in December sometimes. It's like that, but it's also a cool town. I mean, you go to a Cowboys game, that's pretty fun. That is not a bad event to go to. Everybody's just so into football. It's just wild. Kind of like the Seahawks here, but Seahawks here is just the whole 12th man thing to me is just like, you guys are so loud. So very loud, very loud. It's football, right? Yeah. So you've got folks that are going in droves to Texas, which is weird, right? Because for so many years, it was like, it's there. It's a big state, got a lot of beef there. I don't know why I always think of beef when I think of Texas or Dallas, but, now it's for business opportunity. Also, there's just more freedom in Texas. There's more freedom in Oklahoma. People just walk around and you don't have this same onerous, just ridiculousness that you do here in Seattle. If you go over to Seattle, there is invariably people doing stuff that's weird. It's just weird. You're just like, okay, yeah. All right. I'm glad I'm going to spend about 6 hours over here in Seattle. Then I'm going to head back to Nirvana, which is Bellevue. Because that's about all I can take of Seattle, unless I'm out on the water. And the reason the water is so differently, the reason that only Republicans have big boats is that, the United States government doesn't hand out yachts for free. Also, another thing to point out about doing cool stuff on the water, tents don't float. So there's that, right? And so you've got this perfect environment where you can go hang out with like-minded people, and you don't have a lot of the other riffraff running around. And by riffraff, I mean all the people that come to Seattle, that come to Portland, that come to LA for their free handouts. Hey, I just literally did a podcast. This last podcast, there's a drugstore in Seattle that's in Ballard neighborhood that's closing down because they've just been, they've had so many robberies and thefts and shoplifting and assaults. And it got to the point where they had to shut it down. But Ballard, that community, has a real RV homelessness problem. And so talking about that, and one of the quotes from some homeless dude is that they moved here from Walla Walla, Washington. It's over part of the Tri-Cities. It's east of the mountains here. It's far, like 6 hours from here, I think, something like that. But this couple moved from there, from Walla Walla, Washington, to Seattle because they heard it had free housing. Well, their version of free housing is a greenhouse. Now, I don't know if you know anything about greenhouses, but they're designed to retain heat so that you can take seeds and grow them into seedlings. And then seedlings become, plants, which produce crops down the road. Got that whole thing. And this guy was complaining about, it's so damn hot in the greenhouse in the middle of the day. It's supposed to be. See, you driving down the street and you're like, hey, it's clear. It's a clear greenhouse because you want that sunlight to be able to go into your greenhouse, but you don't want that harsh wind, or you don't want it to be cold in case it's, cold out, like the cold snap that killed my spinach crop this year. I'm still heartbroken about that. Oh, a lot of spinach just went sideways. I had to just rip it out. I had to play God and rip out my spinach. I know. Sometimes you just got to make a move and go, all right, those are going to have to die for the greater good of these ones over here, because those ones are dead. These ones, not so much. But this joker was living on the sidewalk in a greenhouse. There's always something weird going on in Seattle. You ain't going to find that down in Dallas. You're just not going to find that. That's not a thing. Hey, set up a greenhouse and see how that works out on the sidewalk in Dallas. Yeah, you're going to die of dehydration before you can get that zipper done, right? It's like taking a mountaineering tent to do your summer camping. Yeah, those mountaineering tents don't exactly breathe. They tend to be a little bit hot. So you got some guy living in a greenhouse in Seattle. I mean, that's just everyday common event. So people want to live where they don't have silliness like that. Texas being one of those states. There's plenty of other states. Man, I've been watching South Dakota, the governor there. She's been going ham on some stuff. Much respect. Ron DeSantis out of Florida. He just announced his presidential running. Did he announce, or was that an announcement to an announcement? I wish they'd just come out and just say, hey, I'm running for president, and that'd be it. Instead, we got to have this lead up, and we got to talk about it. We got to think about it. Now, who's going to be your running mate? All this other stuff. Just declare, vote for me for president. All right, I'm run. Yeah, just go down that road. But no, we got to have all this other stuff. But I think we're getting to a point in America where you've got these states that are just weird, mine included, Washington, and then you've got other reasonable states. And that seems to be just how we're doing it, right? It's kind of what we're left with. So as a country, as we become more divided, it seems like there's just more of a division along all lines, not necessarily just business, but along the lines of, if you are somebody who, really supports left-leaning ideology or left-leaning thoughts, you're not necessarily going to want to live in an area like Texas because they might not allow abortions. So we've gone down, just these really hard lines, and it feels like we're being, separated. We're just being separated by, not even our most extreme thoughts. But yeah, I don't really want to live in an area where a guy's going to be living in a greenhouse on the sidewalk, thinking it's okay. I want to be able to push my grandkid in a stroller on the sidewalk. I don't want to have to explain to my grandkid, there's some knucklehead living in that because that's his version of free housing. And he literally said, I got to protect my house. You mean you've got to protect your clean plastic structure with thin wood frame that is meant for plants that you're living in? You mean that version of your housing? Yeah. Most people just don't want to deal with that, right? That's not in their game plan. It's not what they're doing. It's not what they're thinking. So I am seeing just more and more division as we go. More stories saying, hey, reasonable people are going here. Unreasonable people are stuck in these cities and they're left to kind of work out what they're doing. And, Seattle's got some amazing geography. Portland has got some amazing geography. If you're into the outdoors, these states are for you. If you're into the outdoors, Texas, pretty flat. Oklahoma, pretty flat, but you can run a business all day long. Yeah, they've got some waterways and they've got some rivers and, you've got some little foothills here and there, but you don't have 5,000, foot tall mountains, dozens of them throughout the state. You just don't have that. It's not that kind of environment. So you've got kind of some of the good, you got some of the bad, but it seems like we're just really, okay, you got Cali here and you got Texas here. And it seems like that's kind of what we're left with, right? And I know you've got a bunch of other states, but they all seem to kind of follow in these pretty divided out lines, one way or the other. And business is a real indicator because just like we saw here in Seattle, tax Amazon. Well, hey, genius council member who came up with that. If you tax Amazon enough, they're going to say, yeah, no, we got options. We'll go somewhere else. And they do. And that's kind of what, Amazon has done. HQ2, somewhere else, moving a couple of thousand employees from Seattle to Bellevue, where I am, because Bellevue is a more like-minded city with business development. Seattle, not so much. Seattle has been historically an amazing place for tech development because we've had so many tech companies here and, your downtown core is where the downtown is. But now downtown Bellevue has gotten big enough where that's where the local, that's where the jobs are going, and with Amazon moving people there, and you've got Facebook here and a bunch of other companies here. You're going to go to places where your business is going to thrive. California thinks that they're so big that they can just say, go F yourselves. Somebody else will come in. And, half the time they're probably right. Somebody else will take up that opportunity that you decided to leave. But I think a lot of people don't want to deal with the California nonsense. And that's why you've seen an out-migration. It's why you've seen an out-migration from Portland, because talk about a tough place to get a business up and going. I mean, you've got the state and local entities that are so onerous with development, as you do with a lot of Democrat-run states. That's just how it goes because they view business as the bad entity. They're full of just capitalism and they're going to screw the worker bee. Well, yeah, but you got to have employees to run a business, and that's how capitalism works. And so, dial that down a little bit and kind of get in line with everybody else. But California's not going to do that. Washington State's not going to do that. Oregon isn't going to do that. I was reading some comments this morning on the greater Idaho thing, where you've got 2/3 of the land mass moving from Oregon to Idaho. Somebody was saying that's never going to happen. And I agree. I think, and that's a perfect example of Idaho, a little more right wing. Oregon, everything out towards the coast is just hosed. It's just, it's got the same problems Washington does, but on a much greater scale, because you've had some leadership in, say, a Portland that has been absent, shall we say, there, but absent from the standpoint of taking the city down responsible roads. Just, you got out of control situations. We talk about those all the time here. So Texas just kind of soaking up some business because it's there and they've made themselves available. Florida doing the same thing, doing the same damn thing. Hey, bring your businesses to Florida. We'll help you get set up. We've got affordable housing, got good education. We're not going to teach your kids about sex ed in 3rd grade. That was that whole, don't say gay thing. It's like, okay, you want to talk to my kids or my grandkids about what? When? 3rd grade? Kindergarten? Why? You're grooming them to do what? You're going to sell them a bathing suit with what? Sewn into the crotch? What? What are we doing? Huh. Yeah. All right. No, this trend will continue, and I will keep podcasting it for you right here on News for Reasonable People. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit the like button. Check us out on reasonabletv.com. Check us out on Reasonable Plus. That's our Discord channel. If you're into Discord, if you're into communication, you want to send me a message there, you want to post a video on something, you can go do that there. Thanks again. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.